On the election campaign finance bylaws, Mr. Larry Gordon, Mr. Bill Freeman, and Mr. Paul Farrelly. If Mr. Gordon could come forward. You are all familiar with our procedures, having been here and deputed before, including on this item. Please have a seat. You may there may be questions from non-members or members of committee. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Gordon, and thank you very much for taking your time to be here on this important issue.
Thank you, Mayor Miller. I actually am a rookie coming here, so thank you for the
I apologize. I thought you came here 3 years ago when... No, I know Bill and Paul have.
Yep.
Go ahead. So you still have 5 minutes. I'll restart your time because of the apologies, and go ahead.
Well, I am Larry Gordon, Executive Director of Fair Vote Canada. We're a national multi-partisan citizens campaign for electoral reform, and this is actually the first time we've ever engaged in a municipal level issue, but we're happy to be here today because we think that the decision you'll be making later today and hopefully next Tuesday actually has national implications. As you're aware, corporate and union donations are banned in federal elections, in provincial elections and municipal elections in Quebec, and provincial elections in Manitoba. And if Canada's largest city also aligns with this policy, we think that will set up a momentum to make this the national standard right across the country. One of the important things, aspects of this that we believe is this is a step toward getting election processes more citizen-centered, more citizen-focused, and more citizen-driven. Corporations and unions have an important place in society, but they are not citizens. They do not have the right to vote. They do not have the right to hold office, and they shouldn't have undue influence financially in who is able to run for office or actually succeed at gaining office. By banning corporate union donations also, it will force the successful candidates will more likely be those people who excel at grassroots citizen-centered fundraising, and we think that that's a step in the right direction too. Again, make elections as focused as possible on citizens themselves. And the absence of a ban, unfortunately, as we have right now, allows some people to have more rights than other people during elections, because if you can make a donation as an individual and then make another donation for a business that you own and another donation for another business that you own, you can essentially skirt the campaign maximum donation limits. And that's something that's only available to people who own businesses and not to other citizens. Some people say that the ban might be spirited or it might be like the right direction, but practically it's not going to work because some people find loopholes or ignore it and so on. And I think we always have to be wary of the reform is futile or argument that's always rolled out whenever there's a proposal to reform campaign financing or bring in regulations for almost any aspect of the public good. Some people are always going to find a way around a regulation or a way to avoid it or even consciously or unconsciously violate it. But let's put some perspective around this process. Bringing the full effect of reforms is a three-stage process. First is putting the regulation in place designed as best possible to do the job that you want to do. Several years down the road, the second stage is to go back and revisit it and see if there are loopholes that need to be plugged, improvements that need to be made. That's the second stage. The third stage is even a few years further down the road when social norms and public attitudes have changed in the direction that the regulation pointed. So there starts to be a public and social and political consequence for those who start violating the regulation, the letter of the law, or the spirit of the law. This ban is not suggesting corporations or unions should not be part of the electoral process. They should. They should be engaged in a debate and a discussion during elections. But this is drawing the line saying they should not have a role in actually putting dollars in the campaign coffers of those who are later going to be the lawmakers. There's one final reason I think that City Council should implement this reform, and that's because of the almost runaway public cynicism about electoral politics today. Cynicism's growing, voter turnout's dropping, and our young people aren't even getting engaged in the electoral process any longer. And we can't afford this democratic deficit in this country. Citizens need to believe that the system works, and I think citizens need to see their leaders taking steps to make the system better. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people believe that our political leaders are trying to impede democratic reform rather than lead in democratic reform. And the Toronto City Council has a great opportunity here to do something highly visible that will be seen by the public is a step toward more citizen-centered, more citizen-focused elections, and we certainly urge you to take this step. It's not perfect, it's not comprehensive, but it's a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, there's a couple of questions. Councillor Moscow.
No, I'm afraid I don't know. We could try to find that information for you, but I don't have the answer. I don't have a detailed knowledge of the way it works in Toronto, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mahavik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering, we have the reports in front of us, but they don't make reference to the other jurisdictions. How long have they been in place in the jurisdictions that you mentioned, and what might we learn from those experiences? If you could highlight some pieces of how it's worked in Quebec and Manitoba. Has it led to the kind of, say, democratization of the financial piece of elections?
Right. Unfortunately, our expert in this field, Dr. Bob McDermott, is not able to be here today, and he studied this extensively.
Okay.
So I don't have a detailed answer for you, but my general understanding is that it has shifted. I mean, certainly looking at the media reports on federal elections, there is a perception that it's certainly changed the way the federal parties go about hunting for financing these days. And the ones that are the most successful at attracting grassroots donor support are the ones that are thriving in this environment, which again is the way it should be. If we want it to be citizen-centered, citizen-focused, then grassroots fundraising is that part of the process on the financing side.
A second question. You used the word citizens rather than residents. Does Fair Vote Canada have a position on residents who are not citizens being permitted to vote, or, for that matter, in this context, donate to campaigns?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your deputation, sir. The next deputant is Mr. Bill Freeman.
Is this also amended too?
Now, I hesitate to use the same preamble, Mr. Freeman, but
think
you are familiar with our processes. You do have 5 minutes, and you may be subject to questions by members or non-members of committee. Go ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm an active member of Vote Toronto. I think many of you know what Vote Toronto is. It's basically a research group. There's a small group of us who are involved in this, and we look at campaign donations, not only in the city of Toronto, but in the 2006 election, we looked at campaign donations in 10 GTA municipalities, and the difference I think is quite striking. It is in Toronto, both corporate and union donations are considerably down. In the GTA municipalities, there's still candidates, especially winning candidates, are very heavily supported by corporations, largely corporations that come out of the development industry, not surprisingly. Now, frankly, we were very disappointed that the provincial government did not pass a law, is not planning to pass laws to ban corporate and union donations. The City of Toronto, of course, has that power, but the real impact would have been, we feel, not only in the city of, not necessarily in the City of Toronto, but really in the GTA. And that's very, very unfortunate. So one of the things that I think that I hope that you're aware of and think about as you go forward and wrestle with this issue is that because the City of Toronto has this power, in some ways, you're making a decision not for all of Ontario, but you're going to have an impact on all of Ontario. If this does not pass here at the City of Toronto, largely, I think this issue will be dead. We need to put pressure on the provincial government to pass this across the province. So this is a very important issue. It's an issue of transparency. It's an issue of democracy, trying to be